just close your eyes with me. Take in a couple of big, deep breaths. Because through breath lives spirit. Through our heart, we keep that open, create space and love. Through thoughts and good intentions, because if the mind is all, then the universe is mental. Peace, family, friends, fans, and foes. Excited to come in today. I've got a brother who's just about to join us on air. And just before we dive in deep, I'm going to introduce my brother here. Now, with over a decade of sharing the honor of many men's personal journeys of healing and transformation, this man's ability to draw the attention of men seeking help in troubled situations has been an inspiring catapult to shift his outlook on life. Never always having a clear picture of his purpose or his why, this man's story of his darkest moment has shifted his life to live his true calling sent from above. Now leader and creator of Wisdom and Grit, a men's group on Facebook, he now provides a sacred space for men to unleash their true self and realize their true and fullest potential. With experience in marketing, politics, and now sharing his human gifts of compassion, empathy, wisdom, and integrity, self-pronounced a builder of people, builder of ideas and things. This brother is now building a culture of men ready to build the world worldwide. Brothers and sisters, all the way from Texas, US of A. Please welcome my good brother, Cory Huddleston. How are you, my brother?
Evis, dude, I am so stoked to be here, man. Thank you so much for that awesome introduction. That was, I want a copy of that, by the way. If you got it written down, I would love to get that, man.
Oh,
so
man,
cool.
I'll send you some transcripts, no problem at all, brother. But yeah, going through that, man. I guess, is this it, brother? Because I was looking at some of your work, man, and you know, you've gone from, you know, like I said, the marketing side of things. You've been involved in politics in your hometown over there also. And, man, it just seems like it's just been such an experience and adventure for you, my man.
Man, you know, it's funny because a lot of that, like the politics and kind of, you know, the marketing agency and all the different things that I've been able to do really is just an extension of all my life before, where I've always just been a super curious guy. So like I've had a zest to go and like taste life and figure it out, right? And be a part of the solution rather than the problem.
100%.
And, you know, as I've found, like even with the marketing agency, it's kind of funny because I got in based on trying to figure out my path because I knew there was something calling me to entrepreneurship, but I barely had the guts to ever pull the trigger until later, you know. And when I did, you know, I was just a wreck. I was totally nervous because I wasn't real sure how that was supposed to look or what I was supposed to be doing. And I really didn't have like, you know, like somebody there giving me the ins and outs, which, you know, do we ever? I don't know. You know, it's kind of
yeah, man. It can be a scary place, brother. That's for sure.
It is 100%. And so,
yeah. Sorry, keep going, man. I guess where I was going to start before you dive in real deep, and you know, like a lot of people probably watching this Woke Warrior episode, probably going to think, man, it's a little bit different for you, Ev, to get on a brother as in Cory's regards. And I guess with my introduction, you know, we've both got these men's groups now, and you know, it's so important, as we know, for a lot of men out there. But there are other sides to the story that I saw with you, my brother, and it really clicked last night. And one of those things that I saw in one of your stories, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid at school, man, I would always get the flick in the ear for drawing. I was that kid. I was always looking out the window and I was always looking into the sky. Man, there was never a place in that system for the visualizer. There was never a place in that system for the dreamer. There was never a place for that observer. And there was definitely never a place for the creative man. Now, how I look at it, Cory, is that school system, you were awarded and rewarded for regurgitating information.
Oh, 100%.
So I heard a similar thing happened to you at school, man. If you could just start off with a little bit about your story and how it's got to you where you're at today, my brother.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot like that, man. Like, first of all, dude, I think you're a poet, man. You just need to go out and start writing and creating some poetry, dude, because you got the ability to communicate like very few, you know. So,
Thanks, brother.
but yeah, man, totally agree with you on that front. You know, school for me was always very much like that. I found, you know, a good part of my childhood growing up, pretty much all of it. I failed my way through school, which kind of sounds like, oh, God, who's this guy, right? But, but I mean, like when you look back at it, you know, it's like, now that I'm in a different position to kind of observe the past, you know, and just really reflect on it, like what was that actually, and not just sitting there and seeing all the rejection or the hurt and things because of things I didn't really understand. But now I'm in a position to go back and see everything differently, right? And I think that, by the way, that's an interesting little segue because people need to understand that the past can be changed, or at least how we view it. And I've seen this time and time again. And like you hear the past is the past, just kind of keep your eyes forward. And I think that's important, but don't disregard the opportunity to kind of just take a step back, go out into the wilderness like you do, and be able to like really observe time that's happened in your past and things that may have hurt you or, you know, kind of, you know, been a misunderstanding, and then try to understand it from a different way and see it from a different way. And then watch how your whole future changes. And really everything that was a result of that single moment, right, is now it doesn't exist anymore in the way that we thought it, and it's an opportunity to really grow. So I think there's a lot of growth that can happen there. But anyway, for me, dude, same thing. Like I just couldn't resist the fact that it was just in me to sit there and draw and doodle, and I had zero concern about what was going on around me in school and all that. And so
And sorry, Cory, just to break you
yeah.
off, but for you guys in the land down under, just remember doodle means draw in the States.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Over here, brother, it
Yeah, you
means
said something on your thing. I was like, what does that mean? Yarn or something like that. What was it?
yeah,
But anyway, yeah,
yeah.
so there's a definite language thing going on.
Yeah.
But it's awesome, man. So, but yeah, dude, just being able to draw all the time. And then, you know, as you're continually like getting your C's, D's, and F's, man, it starts to affect your psyche, right? Because you're getting in trouble by your parents, you're getting in trouble by your teacher, you're getting in trouble by the school. And there's just like nobody was really trying to understand where that was coming from, you know, or why, or like to be like, hey, dude, you really gifted over here. You need to be kind of focused on this. And I don't necessarily blame anybody either, because I think that's just the way that it was. You know, I think maybe now they're coming around, but it's also kind of looking back at that and looking at how can I reframe how I see that. All of those things and all the things that kind of perpetually happened afterwards that were painful for me have made me into the man that I am today. So really, I wouldn't change any of it. It's made me a much better father, right? To look at all the things that I endured as a child. And now I know how to look for things like that. So I can kind of almost systematically 15 steps ahead of where they are, be kind of helping them, guide them into different areas without them really knowing it, you know? So,
Yeah,
um,
which is what it's all about, isn't it, brother? You know, we learn from some of those
100%.
experience and be able to evolve and, you know, shift our mindset and reframe those certain things that may have happened. Then, you know, being able to pass that on to the family, man. And, you know, it's beautiful. You've got a family of two, Cory?
Yeah, so I've got my wife, and then I've got my son and my daughter. So my son's 7, my daughter's 3 years old. She's about to be 4. So
Beautiful,
totally
man.
different dynamic, you know. But it's cool because like I see a lot of myself in them, and I see a lot of my wife in them, and but they're both really hungry for life. They're creative. They're smart. They both love to read. But I think a lot of that has come from our desire to want to do that. It's like since my son's been born, we've read at least 2 books with him every single day, and he's 7 years old now. So now he
Wow.
reads like a fit, you know, he's just constantly reading. And but he's also active. Like I've been taking him out mountain bike riding since he was 5 years old. Most kids aren't even riding until they're 7, you know,
Yeah,
and he's
man.
already been extreme, like pretty hardcore mountain bike riding at, you know, 5, 6, 7 years old. And like we get out and enjoy life and jump in the lake when it's frigid cold outside. And, you know, I make it exciting so that he's excited about it, and
Yeah.
just share that passion for life, man. That's what it's all about.
It's beautiful, my brother. And, you know, just dipping back into that story again, you know, I did pick up a couple of things that you were talking about in other podcasts online. And I just wanted you to share, Cory, maybe one of those darkest moments, if you could, brother, if you want.
Sure, man. Yeah. No. So, is there anything specific? Like I can tell you, I know.
It was basically when you were talking about through your 20s, you know, you really didn't have that
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
mentorship. And I
Totally.
guess, you know, from what I was talking about in our pre-chat, I saw my parents separate, as a young kid, and it was quite abusive stuff that used to go on. But how it affects us going into our adulthood, and I've started to see these sort of patterns play out with a lot of men, particularly a lot of the men that we're helping on their health, fitness, and wellness journeys.
Yeah.
And I just thought, if you could share, something from the experience from your childhood.
Yeah, man. So I moved down here. So my parents got divorced when I was about 17 years old. So prior to that, there was a little bit of friction and stuff like that. I was already sucking at school, trying to find my place in the world. I was out working, nearly full time, like at 16 years old, already going through that, and then by the age of 17, I was out on my own. My parents had gotten the divorce at that point. And it was an interesting time, at the time, I really didn't know what was going on, but my mom had gotten a boyfriend and my dad had moved out to go get his own apartment. So he had come, it's a pretty hardcore story, but I'll share it with y'all. But I remember coming home from school and my dad, we lived out in the country, and my parents had bought like this trailer house with this idea that it was on 40 acres, and it was kind of on this hilly area with cactus everywhere and all this kind of stuff. And there was that trailer house was up on the hill and it overlooked like this valley. And I remember, like I said, coming there, my dad was in the driveway with this Jeep, which the driveway was nothing but part of it. It was dirt essentially with a bunch of rocks lining it up the hill. And the trailer was on there and he was in there grabbing furniture, to move out, and I was like, what the heck, like he's over there. We're in this like little, tiny trailer house, that was supposed to be the interim thing. And he was grabbing furniture for himself for his apartment so that he could be nice and cushy. And I was like, screw this, and my mom's kind of crying out in the driveway. And I remember going in and getting my gun. I had a shotgun and I came out and I headed up to his head and I was like, you take one more thing, I'm going to blow your head off, And I was 16 years old, 17 years old, and I think back to that time because that was such a just a painful time, dude. Confusing and all that, But I saw him hurting my mom and then leaving us out there with nothing. And I was like, dude, you're a piece of crap, And I kind of lived with this code of honor back then, we'll still do. But anyway, I did that, and I remember the look in his eyes whenever I did that, and he was like, Tanya, get your son away from me. He was talking to my mom and like basically disavowing any relation, at that point in time. And I just stood steady with the gun to his head, and he got in the Jeep, didn't even tie anything down, and left and went to town, and all that kind of stuff. And that was kind of this moment of just like, it kind of stirred this rage in me, because I didn't know how to deal with anything else.
And you're just 16 years old.
Yeah, 17, I guess, right around there. But yeah, I was like, I'm not going to be freaking pushed around and bullied by the dude who just took off. You know what I'm saying? And so I remember, like, one of the things that I've really been in touch a lot with, Evis, dude, is people right now, the world seems to be burning down. It seems crazy, right? I think we can all agree that there's something not right with where things are. And as I sit back and think about that a lot, right? Because like I said, I've been involved politically and all this kind of stuff. So I always am trying to figure out solutions to stuff. That's just the nature of it. And I'm like, man, where is this all coming from? And dude, best as I can tell, it's all rooted in rejection. Whether it be somebody wasn't heard, and it may be how they perceived it. My rejection came, through different things, but a lot of it came from that singular moment where, it's like, here's this dude who's took off and didn't even have the stones, to go to the furniture store and get his own damn self some furniture and not come to our little trailer house and take what he could, at that time, and maybe I'm missing something there or whatever else. But in that moment, dude, it just didn't make sense. And I was like, I'll be damned if I sit back and just watch that happen, and right or wrong, now I've come to terms, I have a relationship with my dad as much as I can, we're still not like super close, but I try to build that relationship. But in that moment, I look back at that stuff too, dude. And that's been a huge catalyst for me, like within Wisdom and Grit, like not really having that example of what men are supposed to be and craving it desperately because, dude, I wanted nothing more than to be able to build a car with my dad and to be able to hang out. And that's really all I ever cared or wanted about, but I never was able to have it. Right. And I'm not talking from some wounded position. I'm just like, this is, I can recognize it now. Like when I just, kind of stoically look back at my life and I'm like, dude, it was the biggest blessing that ever happened to me, Yeah, and it was a hard road, dude. It was freaking hard. There were times we lived out in the middle of the country and I had no gas in my car and I'm trying to figure out, and I'd have to walk 4 miles just to get to the gas station so I could use the payphone to call somebody to come and help me get some gas in my car or something. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of things that I don't share a lot of times because one, I don't want to think about them because they just bring up bad emotions, or two, like what's the point? You move forward, not backwards, right? So you're kind of, but I do recognize the value in having situations you can walk through like that,
Man,
but again, dude.
Yeah, first of all, brother, I honor you for, sharing that part of your story. Something that I hadn't heard from what you've put out there so far.
Yeah, I've never shared that. No,
thanks for that, Cory. And,
yeah.
a lot of the guys that I do talk to about, some of these childhood wounds and traumas, and man, they're not a bad thing, brother. I hid mine for a very long time, and I only sort of came to that premonition this year. And I meditate daily, Cory. And some people might pray, some people might meditate, some people might just talk to whatever. But whatever it is, I gave myself time, and particularly this year when I was going through other separation issues, it came up to me that, I was actually building my body all this time as a protective armor, because as that kid, I felt helpless, brother. And I felt guilty because I couldn't get in there and stop anything. And these things are coming to the surface, brother. And although they feel like they're coming down around us, brother, as I've talked to some of these other guys on the Woke Warrior, we've got to peel this stuff away for us to be cleansed and be able to move forward like you're talking about. So, man, you hold your head up, brother, for telling that story. And, I honor that, man. I honor that so much.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate you, the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, man.
So,
and I guess, like that has built, what you have successfully done today. And, just here in this first couple of minutes, I can see why men, gravitate and resonate towards your story, man. It's just beautiful. But I guess getting on to, the wisdom and grit side of things, you talk with the slogan of men building the world.
Yeah.
And I guess like when I was talking in the pre-chat room about, how we could look at that building the world, I sort of look at it a couple of different ways, Cory. I see that literally, men being able to shed these layers away so we can have men that are standing up and building a world that we want to live in. Because, hey, at the end of the friggin' day, man, we've got to be coming in and standing up and really working out where the fuck are we turning up in relationship? Are we actually turning up to the plate to be able to build this world that we want to see? So we need to start really, like I said, peeling back these layers, but then starting to really focus on building that world within. And I think a lot of us men, we just don't have the fucking tools to be able to do that these days. We were never taught this. So what's your thought on that, mate?
Well, it all comes back down to, like, I totally resonate with what you're saying, because it wasn't that long ago that I didn't even know why I was on this planet, right? I was completely confused. It was, I worked a lot of like construction and stuff kind of going up, and I was always reading Rich Dad Poor Dad or something like that, trying to figure out my thing. Oh, dude, it's the greatest, man. I love that book. I recommend that book to everybody, man, because it was a catalyst for me in a lot of ways. But
100%.
We got married, in 2009, I guess. And I remember walking my dog. I had an 85-pound American bulldog named Amadeus, and he was a beast, man. Almost as beastly as you, So, but like, dude, and I remember like we'd walk every night, and he insisted because he would not use the bathroom in our yard. So, I don't know why he was so dang particular, but I came to love it because twice a day I had to walk him, around the block. And so I was outdoors, and it would be like in these times where I was hyper stressed. I just started Lure Studios, my marketing agency. And I had started it with $500. We had just bought a house. My wife had just lost her job as a school counselor, and we had just had my son. So I mean, dude, the world was just like boom, like I mean, it was all coming down around me. And I remember just the level of stress and confusion and fear and everything just culminating at that point in time. And I was like, walking my dog, man, I remember just going like, why am I on this planet? And I was like in my own mind trying to figure this out, because I was like, I don't know. I really don't. Like, and in my whole life, I never had. I was like, dude, can you imagine being 35 years old? Well, I mean, maybe you can, I don't know, but and not having a single clue why you're on this planet. That's torture.
I was there, bro. I was there.
Yeah. And so, man, then I'm walking my dog, and I felt like God was like, ask me. And I was like, all right. God, I can't believe I never had asked you before. And dude, I was like, all right, God, why am I here? And without hesitation, he goes, you're a builder. You're a builder of people. You're a builder of ideas, and you're a builder of things. And I heard it just like that, man. And in that moment, I saw my entire life just go poof, like this, spread out, dude. And I saw my entire life, dude, like a timeline. And I saw everything that ever mattered to me was me building people, building ideas, or building something tangible with my hands. And dude, I like in that moment, I saw myself as this 3D image, and I was like blue on this side and red on this side. And then it was me in the middle. And in that time, it was a boom, and it just collided, dude. And my eyes lit up, and my shoulders went back. And I was like, dude, I was a changed man. I knew it, like, dude, what's so crazy to me, Evis, dude, is how you can go from like bottom of the barrel, dude. I mean, I couldn't have been any lower, like emotionally, physically, spiritually. Like spiritually, I was pretty high because I was in such just turmoil. But dude, in that moment, like it all just bam, like a snap of the fingers, bro. Like it all shifted. And I realized, I was like, dude, I will say no to everything that isn't me building people, building ideas, or building things. I will not spend my time on anything other than that on this planet. And I knew I was put here for that. And then you fast forward now, like 5 years, which is later. And then I'm like starting Wisdom and Grit, but that came through a bunch of other series of things. And I'm like, how am I going to separate myself in the market? Because I've been in marketing long enough to know like what's your unique proposition, right? Your unique seller proposition.
And when were you working? I think I picked up on something. You worked in another with another guy. I think he was with the Dallas Cowboys.
Chad Hennings, yeah. So
was that a men's group or?
That was a men's ministry. I still help out with that, but I'm not as involved now. I've kind of gone out on my own, and I love those guys and all that kind of stuff. And I've spent 10 years helping build that up. We built out Wingman, which is the name of that. So it's a good organization. You can go to wingman.org online and check out the YouTube videos and stuff. And there's we brought in great speakers, but I realized that was going to be really about building relationships only. And I knew we had to start equipping men. That was really my burden and my drive. And man, and I'd run for city council here locally at one point. And I remember running, and I was like, I don't belong in it. Like, and it wasn't because I don't feel like I didn't belong there or something. It was like, I know that my place isn't here. My place is building a movement of men so that I can strong arm anybody who it was like, dude, I'm about to like put the punch down their throat. Like that was where I realized if I go in and get elected as a city council person, I'm basically handcuffing myself to a bunch of rules and regulations that I know I won't be able to follow, and like, I need to be able to like, I'm a bull in a china closet, and I need somebody to be like, charge this way, and go get it done, so, you just get in there and you make it happen, dude. So
you're an action man, and this is why you're so successful at what you do, my brother, and you make moves. And I guess, going into that next question, what I've started to try and help with a lot of the men that I see, because we do, Cory, we go from A to B, and we go that shortest route. We push, we put so much energy and electricity into making shit happen.
Yeah.
And, this isn't a problem, but what I've found from some of the men that I've helped is that they've started to burn out, brother. They've started to come to a point where, A to B, I'm going to fucking take whatever it gets to get there, and I'm going to get there. Yeah, we got there, but guess what? We forgot about that little bit in the center of getting there. We forgot about some of those suppressed emotions. We forgot about some of those suppressed thoughts. We forgot about some of those suppressed feelings. So we've put all those things aside, like we've sort of, touching on here, and we've done everything to go forward, but we've forgot to cultivate the stillness and that quieter nature about who we are also. And that's why I'll find through, whether it is prayer or whether it is meditation, that you're able to sit still with some of those thoughts and feelings. And through my own practices, man, I've been able to bring some of that shit to the surface, brother. And now I'm cleansing through it. And look, hey, if we're here, we're working on ourselves until we go down 6 feet under, brother. So it's a constant journey. But my thing is to you, brother, what are some of those tools and best practices that you're helping men with in some of these sort of issues, like, when they're suppressing some of these feelings and emotions?
Well, the big thing is like identity, man. First of all, you have to recognize who and what you are. Like, this is the thing that men miss. And I saw this post the other day, or maybe it was yesterday or something, but a guy posted, he goes, something about, should we try to get society all on the same board about what masculinity is? And I was like, no. Like, dude, like, if you're relying on like society at large to tell you what it means to be a man, you've already missed the point. Like, this is the problem in the first place. Like, we're sitting around asking, like, hey, can you tell me how to be a man? Hey, like, what does it mean to be a man? And everybody's trying to, flex and be like, oh, this is what it means to be a man. I'm like, dude, there's a lot of ways to be a man. I already know that. Like, I know I tend to come off as more aggressive alpha, but like, dude, I like to be nerdy too. Like, I love to read a book and hang out and not talk to anybody. And like, I love to geek out on something really hardcore because I'm curious about the world. And I think we've got to get out of this whole mindset that there's a way, right? But I can tell you this, dude. The thing is if you're letting the lesbians tell you what it means to be a man, or women tell you, or the guy who's freaking out there on top of, whatever, beating his chest. And like, I tend to be more that guy. I love being out in the outdoors, but if you're letting other people tell you what it means to be a man, then we're already missing the point. And dude, this, like, lions don't ask for permission to be lions. They just are. And so we've got to start realizing that, first of all. So stop asking for permission and just start doing things. Like, dude, if you want to go build something, go to the freaking store and buy the tools, get on YouTube and figure out how to do it. Break it. It's going to happen. Figure out how to fail as fast as freaking possible and keep going. Learn how to cook. Learn how to kiss. Like, I heard some dude talking about how bad it is to be alone, or, and he's like, he's 40, 50 years old or something like that. And he's never been married, and he's worried. He's like whining about being alone. I'm like, dude, stop being a pussy and go ask a woman out, dude. Like, it's not hard, right? It's like, figure out what you want and go get it. Don't let anything stand in your way. But it's like, there's all these things that are hung up in our heads about, what we can or can't do. And we have that authority, dude. So now you take it all the way back, dude. And it's like, what is a man, really? Dude, all you have to do is study history. History will teach you everything you ever needed to know, dude. Men have built this world. And that's what I tell people, dude. It's like, dude, if you look back from the beginning of time to where we are now, and dude, whether it was a man who went out and took land and plowed it down, made it his own, right? He took it and he built a home for his family, and he was out working the fields and killing the beasts, dude, to be able to, Aboriginal, dude, you guys get it, dude. It's like, you're going out and you're handling business, dude, because that's what you do. Right. And you're bringing it back and you're feeding your family and you're making love to your wife, dude. And you're taking care of your kids and you're making sure that they're clothed and fed, dude. From all of that and being able to tame the wild land, dude, all the way to the most sophisticated cities that the world has ever known. Men built that by and large. You can argue all you want with me about that. You will never change the fact that that's true. Period. And I don't care what anybody says about it. And even if they were sitting there trying to argue with me about it, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to sit there and worry about it because none of those people have any influence on my life whatsoever. And this is where, if men stop asking for permission and just start fucking doing, pardon my language, dude, but like, I get passionate about that because I get so irritated by this, like, hey, what should I do, man? It's like, freaking move, dude. Like, go get your bruise. Like, you need to get punched in the face once or twice in your life so that it's not going to freaking kill you. And actually, it kind of feels kind of good, too. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's that level of like, whoa, I'm alive. It's just like, this is how it's supposed to be, I'm not saying going out and being a brute, you know, but like, dude, you know, handle your business.
It's interesting you talk about that, man, because I think the whole idea of the healthy masculine, it definitely has been hijacked, particularly this last 5 years in particular. And do you know Michael Tsarian, Corey?
I don't.
He's over in the States at the moment, but he's actually Irish background, and he talks a lot about, you know, the psychology of what's going on, and, you know, he talks a lot about Freudism and, you know, Carl Jung and some of these guys back in the day. Yeah. And you know, there was something I was listening to what he was talking about, and he talks about the destructive man versus the creative man, and all of those points that, you know, some of those points that you're talking about of that
the shadow work.
Yeah, the shadow work.
Yeah.
And I was going to get into that, man. You're onto it.
Yeah.
We're on the same frequency. But some of the stuff that he's talking about with the creative man, that he doesn't need a stimulus of the outside world to make it a man who he is today. Yeah. He doesn't need to, you know, have the next best thing to show that he's a man in the world today. That creative man, he can go out in nature. He can fucking go out there by himself and survive, because he can build, because he can go into the wild, but then he can come in back into the community, and, you know,
be a happier, healthier guy.
That's right. He's already filled his cup. So now he can fill the cup of others.
Yep.
And it's one of those things, man, that we definitely have been hijacked of what it is to be healthy masculine. And, you know, for all you sisters out there, don't get it twisted, because we've got to understand too that the queens back of the day, they would give birth to that sort of man to provide for them in, you know, provide the castle and the kingdom. So this is not getting it twisted at all. And, you know, part of that movement, I do believe, like you're saying, has been a big feminist push to demasculize the man of today. And that's why we do see ourselves in the state we're in. Man, we've got chemicals going left, right, and center. Men, like you said,
that's a big part of it. Yeah.
Going
the other part, it goes back to that rejection, though, Evis, you know, because it's like when you look at the argument that people have against masculinity, it's all about their projection of masculinity. So if they were in a home where their dad abused them, or he left them, or he, you know, verbally or sexually or whatever assaulted them, whatever it is, you know, or they had brothers like that, or they had other influences like that. Now they're projecting that on other men. And so they try to tame down the man while they're rising up and like culturally, they're put on a pedestal for this, right? It's like, I'm tough. I don't need a man. I don't need this. And it's like, nobody said you needed a man, first of all. So you're self-aggrandizing, right? But we need each other. Like, and if we deny that, then we're all a bunch of liars, and we're all going to die sick, healthy, alone. I mean, I'm sorry, sick.
Sick, diseased.
Yeah, sick, disease, all these kind of things, and alone and miserable and all of these things. And it's like, dude, and I think we all have a tendency to have life like that before our eyes, but we've got to be wise enough to be able to look at, you know, we need to have, first of all, we need to have grace for other people. And I'm realizing this in my own life, because I tend to be a little bit like, boom, go for the throat, you know, when I'm going after stuff. But at the same time, I'm also very much like, dude, when I see somebody legitimately trying, I'm the first guy there to be like, dude, come on, man, let's go grab a beer. I want to freaking talk with you, you know, like, let's go, you know, because I want, dude, like, life is about making mistakes. So when I ran for the office, you know, like city council, like I had jail time and all this stuff in my past, and they were like, oh, they're going to rake you for that. And I was like, why? Dude, that was freaking 15, 20 years ago. Go ahead, bring it up. I was talking about it on Facebook Lives. Dude, no other politician was out there like putting all his dirty laundry out there, because I'm like, dude, I've already been forgiven by the Lord, man. I don't need your forgiveness, but I'm here to make a difference. I've already shown that I've changed my life. Most of you just haven't gotten caught, or you're too scared to ever be who you really were in the first place. So I've already got you beat mentally, and I will own you when I get to the table. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Like, go in there and get your teeth kicked in a little bit, man. It gives you it gives you the boldness that you need to be able to, that thick skin that you need to be able to move through life, you know?
100%.
It's okay to fall and get kicked to the ground, dude. That's why you got to have brothers around you, like Evis. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, if you were closer, dude, we would definitely be hanging out. I already know that, you know? So it's like, to have a guy like you you know, as a coach or something like that, where you're like pouring into men's lives and helping them get out in nature, then like, dude, okay, you got a little centipede on you. Stop screaming like a girl and handle it. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, enjoy life, dude. Taste what it tastes like to drink water out of a spring. Go to the top of a mountain and see what it looks like to see the clouds from the top side when the sun is blazing across the top of them. You know what I'm saying? Or what it feels like to be in the middle of the Alaskan bush when you're reeling in a freaking, 10-pound fish, dude, out of one of those awesome mountain lakes. It's like, dude, there's lots of stuff out there to be seen, done, experienced, adventured, and all this kind of stuff, but it ain't going to happen with you freaking tucking your head in between your legs, playing video games, drinking beer, smoking weed, and doing all the stuff that you're doing to try to freaking keep yourself from actually having to live, right? And thinking that anybody gives a crap about the mistakes that you made. Nobody does. And the only people that do are the ones that don't matter anyway. So stop letting it define you. Rise up, man. Admit that you made mistakes and be a man of integrity and go get some,
Such good points you're making there, man. And one of those things that you just talked about then, my brother, he's probably watching. I love you, bros. But some of these men, they're so attached to these games. And one of the things that I picked up that I mentioned on this Michael Tsarian podcast, he talked about how we as men, we're really sort of started gravitating and resonating towards the anti-hero, not the hero.
Yeah.
And there's this
really weird.
There's this really funny necrophilist sort of world that we're sort of starting to live in. And that's why we're getting hammered with some of these imagery like zombies and stuff like this.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And it's just, we've started to gravitate towards this anti-hero. And it's quite interesting that you talk about that, man, because it is something out there that needs to be looked at, particularly with that, entertainment side of things and being distracted by this illusionary outside world.
Man, there's a book, like, you might want to go and do it. You sound like the kind of guy who's into like psychology and stuff like that, but there's a book called On Killing, and it was written by a general in the U.S. forces here. And he was talking about, one of the points inside of it was that back during like World War II, I think there was something like 16% of people would only ever, when they were engaged with the enemy, they would only ever point at the enemy and shoot to kill. Everybody else was shooting above the head, to the side, around, whatever, they were in the sky, whatever it was. Like, so in anticipation of the Vietnam War, they started using paper targets that had a human profile on them. And the freaking amount of people that were aiming to kill jumped to 80-something% just by that simple switch, dude. And it's like, I know that people have done these tests on video games and all this, and I'm probably going to get waylaid for this by a bunch of video game players, but I don't care, man. Like, dude, those things are problems. Like, when you get into some of the video games and stuff where they're shooting people, like even this one that everybody's playing now,
Fortnite.
Yeah, Fortnite, yeah. Dude, my buddy and his kids play it all the time, and I'm like, bro, like, got to be careful with that. I'm not saying don't play things and have fun. I love war stuff, dude. I grew up watching war movies. Like, that was all I ever did, but like, whenever you see that happening and you see this correlation now to all the school shootings and people just going like zero regard for human life, like you're saying, all this, like that Joker movie that came out, and everybody's like, oh, go see it. And I'm like, dude, I have no intention of seeing that. Like, I'm not going to go hurrah the twisted, demented, spirit of that,
Well, it's all about mental health, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's funny because he was actually, I think, the Joker's story, he was actually abused as a child too, wasn't he?
Yeah. And it's like, if we're finding solace in being able to come alongside the Joker and feel like that we need to be elevating that kind of lifestyle, dude, there's something very seriously wrong with things that are going on. And it's like, dude, instead of going out to these movies and like, dude, enjoy movies. Like, I love like gun movies and all that. And I'm not saying, don't play video games and all this, but like, dude, when you start living that and that's all that you're doing and you're sitting in there and you're eating like crap, you're not exercising, you have zero interaction with the outside world, and all you do is play games where you're shooting people, dude, you need to be put on a freaking watch list. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just the way, like, it's a recipe for disaster, dude. you know,
Man,
and I know,
I hope these brothers are listening to what you're saying out there, Cory.
dude, get outside, go hang out with Evis in the free, dude. If I were, we would be out in the bush all the time, bro. I'm telling you, like, I love it,
That's
you know,
it,
being out
brother.
in the wild. And it's like, that wasn't something I did all the time back then because I was like trying to build my business and I was like so committed to that. And I get it. But dude, like, what do we do all that stuff for in the first place?
Yeah, man.
To live.
You got to think what we are, Cory. We're natural. We're organic. You
Yeah.
know, so it just makes sense to me when we go back there 6 feet under. When we pass on, we're going back to the soil anyway.
100%, man. And you know what? Getting out there and getting that vitamin D and all that stuff, just don't do the weird thing where they start sunning their butthole, you know? It's like, have you heard about that?
I have heard of it, man, but I don't
Oh my
practice it.
God. So my
Not
buddy just
yet.
told me
Not
about it
yet.
and I was like, you got to be kidding me, dude. There's just some things that aren't worth doing, you know? I don't know. So,
Now, there's other ways to get sun, man. And as they say,
yeah,
the sun
totally.
doesn't shine from there. So,
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, man, I guess moving on before we go right down the black hole.
Yeah, very
you did
literally, right?
you did mention about the poetry side of things, man. And you know, the more I listen to you, Cory, I can hear some beautiful words coming from you, my man. And there was
Thanks,
one
man.
thing that I picked up on one of the podcasts, and it talked about one time you said you were just sitting there, and you know, you wanted just to come out with a good quote. And it's something that I'm really
Yeah.
passionate about, and I've always
You did your homework, man. Yeah, you went deep. Yeah.
I love doing the research, brother.
Yeah.
But one of the quotes that you mentioned, and I'm just going to read it out for our viewers out there or our listeners, and you said, Cory, do not exist solely to stand in the shadows of great men. Stand in the light of God, and He will cast your shadows for you. Now,
Amen.
that's quite interesting, man. And man, that is deep. That is deep when I say it on the Woke Warrior. I looked at that a couple of ways, Cory, and you know, I can see that translated from something that you just also talked about. I mean, yeah, we can literally take it, you know, from the light of God, but also that shadow work you're talking about, brother.
Yeah.
You know, that shadow that I see, you know, a lot of men, they are standing in the shadows of others. And when we talk about the shadow work, we've got to be careful, man, because the shadow work, from my understanding, when I read a lot about what the psychologists say, it goes back 7 times in generations of an ancestral shadow
Yeah.
work. So why would you want to be standing in those shadows when you can't even deal with your own?
Right.
But you tell me a little bit about that quote, man. I thought it was beautiful.
Well, yeah, man. No, like, I love that you brought that up because it actually is very relevant to what we're talking about here. Because I spent so much time in personal development trying to overcome this whole stigma of not graduating high school, right, not going to college, and failing my way through life pretty much, and going to jail and all. I mean, dude, I was a loser, you know, by all accounts, you know. But looking back at it, you know, I don't beat myself up about it because it was just what I knew, and I didn't know how to get where I wanted, you know, and I really. You know, the experiences made me who I am today, so I value every one of them. But I remember sitting there, and I was 21 years old the first time I ever read a book, probably since Green Eggs and Ham as a kid or something like that. I didn't even know there were books like Rich Dad Poor Dad out there. And so, dude, Rich Dad Poor Dad was the first book I read, and I was like, oh my God, dude, I ate it up, right? And I started reading all these other books and reading all these other books and reading all these other books and trying to be like these guys, man, these giants, right? And I was like, oh, I want to, like, I got to meet Robert Kiyosaki, which I did, you know, multiple times. I've got to like do all these things, and I'm trying to read about these guys so that I can be like them. And I love learning about stories from people. But I remember specifically sitting there because I loved quotes, you know, and I was single at the time, and I was sitting in my bed, and I'm like, man, I am not going to bed until I leave the world a quote by Cory Huddleston, you know. I didn't really quite understand how quotes actually worked, you know, like you just say it and maybe somebody catches it and then it becomes famous. I was like, I'm going to give you my quote and you're going to like it. You know?
Man, yours, that's from the heart, brother. That's how it works.
No, 100%, dude. So I was sitting there and I was like, man, just sitting there praying, thinking, you know, and doing all this kind of stuff. And it just came and it was like, man, do not exist solely to stand in the tall shadows of great men, but stand in the light of God and He will cast you shadow for you, you know? And I didn't even fully comprehend the depth of that back then. And it's funny because as time's gone on, it's really become more real to me, you know, than it ever was before. And so like I love kind of looking back at it now because it gives me some context to how I used to be, you know. And I was always a pretty hungry dude, you know. I just needed like a lot of energy with, you know, I was always out riding bulls or jumping out of airplanes or, you know, whitewater rafting down Category 5 rivers and all this stuff, like high energy, like always looking for something to go conquer, you know. And like when I realized, like, dude, the biggest thing I could conquer, the greatest thing I could ever conquer was my own self, you know, and like being able to really understand that. And so, like, to what you were just talking about, though, it's like, man, you're doing that hard work of seeing yourself and taking the time to hear your own thoughts and know what you're doing every day. And, you know, like these different things that you can do in your own life. Like, am I out eating fast food all the time and drinking Cokes and Dr. Pepper, whatever, you know, all these things? Or am I taking care of myself and drinking water and eating right and exercising and surrounding myself with good people so that we can laugh heartily, man, and dream and think through and be strategic? And, you know, the relationships that I do, are these strategic? And all these things that men should, and, you know, they should be doing, right? It's just part of being a man, right? Taking care of things and handling your stuff, man. You're not like being a boy still, you know? And, dude, it's everything, man.
They were beautiful words, my man. And I'm sure there was a couple other quotes that came up around that time, but it's nice that you're able to look back now and reflect and just see how far you have come, man. Because one of our viewers, she actually mentioned, you know, mistakes are lessons to rise up from. And Cory, everything that you're talking about, man, it's definitely a part of that, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, dude, and it's more than just overcoming mistakes and focusing on our own failures and overcoming and all. Like, it's not about us, man. Like, it's cool that we can do this, but when we can look at the world and like take that and shift it all around, like, dude, we need to be in that legacy mindset. So how do we start building the world around us, right? How do we build into people? Like, this is the message, man. It's everybody talks about changing the world, but I don't like the way that that's said a lot of times because, like, dude, I could change your posture by kicking you in the, you know, the nuts. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that a good thing? No, I don't think so. You know, unless you're some weird sadistic dude. You know, but it's like, dude, when we talk about building, dude, and we make everything better than the way that we find it, and that's it's so ingrained in our head that we can't help it. That when we get out of our car and we're walking through a parking lot of a place we've never been before and probably will never be again, and we see a piece of trash blowing through the parking lot, that we stop what we're doing, we bend over, and we pick it up, and we go and put it in the trash can. Or we stop looking at our phone or stop thinking about, I got to get in the door before that person does, and go over there and actually open the door for that person, look them in the eye and say, hey, have a good day, you know?
100%.
Dude, I was at the store this morning for another meeting with a buddy of mine at 7 a.m, right? And this guy comes in, like, we're standing because the doors weren't open yet. It was still early in the morning. And he comes up and he's like, this guy, I don't know why he was talking, because I was on my phone. I was dressed like this. And he all of a sudden just starts going into all this political talk. Like, I mean, just all of a sudden, like, and I'm like sitting there going, and it's anti what I believe typically too, because he was talking about the president and all this kind of in a bad way and all that. And I tend to be more conservative. But, you know, and I didn't care. Like, it was interesting, like how he just went into it. And he started telling me, and he's like, and I realized, like, this is awesome, dude. This guy is sharing his life with me. And, like, even though we don't, like, he's given me his precious time and his breath, dude. Like, he will never get these moments back of his life. And he's taking the time to share with me. And I realized, like, dude, he just needed to be heard. And that's not my MO, by the way. Usually I'm like, oh, let's get into some politics, man. Let's go, you know? So, you know, but in that moment, I was just like, God was like, dude, just hear him. Just let him speak. And it's okay. And, like, dude, and look, you guys are still as much alike as ever. Like, just because of your ideas, like, let him speak. It's not going to hurt you to hear him out. And I was like, man. And it was super cool because I was able to be like, man, thank you for sharing that with me. And normally I'd just be like, dude, that was the most idiotic thing I've ever heard anybody say. So God's doing some work in me too, man. I'm always growing and learning. But I mean, it's like, it's one of those things where, you know, I think we just got to have more grace for each other and be willing to go and explore the depths of who we are so that we can actually see what does the best version of myself look like on this earth. And how can I make it a reality? And stop putting limitations on ourselves and building the world out based on what we think we know about it. Especially with all the stuff that we've done in the past to build walls that we thought we were protecting ourselves, but really all they did was create a prison. Dude, you need a wrecking ball to come in and just be like, boom, and open it up, man. And then with wide abandonment, you know, like childlike abandonment, dude, just go out and explore, dude, and fall down and be that trailblazer, dude. Trailblazers don't have paths. By definition, they are the ones making the path.
Yeah.
And we can say that we are all day long, but when it gets real, right? Because it's hard being a trailblazer, dude. You're the first guy that gets the snake bite to the throat. You're the first guy, you know. I mean, in the bush, I don't know. Are you in the bush a lot, or is it like, I'm sure y'all meet some pretty crazy stuff out there, right?
We got some pretty crazy stuff, but none as crazy as the animals we are, brother.
100%. That's it.
You know,
there's a side of that. It comes alive, and it's like, man, I hope I meet a snake. I'm gonna rip its throat out with my teeth. You know, it's like, let's go. You know?
Nah, look,
So,
they're more scared of us, brother. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
You hit it on the head, man, again. And thanks for some of those value bombs. And, you know, a lot of our audience that listens, they do listen for a couple of these value bombs for experts like yourself. When you talk about just being able to listen, just being able to pay attention, you know, like it's just such a basic but such a powerful gift that we can give to each other. But so many times, and you know, man, I talk to people all the time. I'm a people person, as you can see, and I got people, man, they pull out their phone in front of me and start talking. I'm like, man, I was just fucking talking to you, man. What's going on? And this is what I'm saying. Like, we're so disconnected from this human nature of who we truly are, from technology, from, you know, whatever it may be out there. We're so disconnected, and we now need to start pulling ourselves within. And one of those places, like you're saying, that I try and recommend is out there in the outdoors, or in nature, as we call it here in Australia.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, you know, we're just coming up onto that hour, my brother, and I don't want to steal too much more of your time, but I wanted to sort of touch on a little bit about the more in that group environment, because we know, you know, with these couple of groups that we share, just how powerful is it for men now to find their brotherhood, brother?
It's critical, man. I really don't know how a guy thinks that going through life alone is the answer. And I get that why they do, but like, you know, because it really comes out of shame or it comes out of pride. It's really driven out of one of those two things a lot of time, because we don't.
Or fear itself.
Fear, yeah, because we don't want to be forced to kind of talk about anything other than surface level stuff. Like half the guys groups out there, I can't even be a part of it because they're talking about stupid crap. I mean, it's not even like they care about growing. It's like they share dirty jokes, or they say this and that. It's like, man, I'm out, dude. That's not my thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to talk about things that actually move the needle in life and that can impact people, because I'm going to hold people accountable by nature. Like, whether I'm doing wisdom and grit, or I'm out at the freaking, you know, mall, or like, you know, whatever. I don't go to the mall, but whatever. You get what I'm saying. Like, whatever I'm doing, like, dude, again, a lion's just going to be a lion. I'm not going to go ask for permission. Like, dude, do you mind if I speak into your life real quick? It's like, man, if I see an opportunity to do it, I'm not going to waste that opportunity, because I was the guy for the long part of my life when I was a younger guy who was freaking desperate for someone to come along and just show me the freaking ropes. Like, dude, how do you ask out a girl? How do you do life? You know, like, I mean, dude, and I have nothing but bad experiences about what men are supposed to be in my path, you know, like in that part of my life. And that's a big part of why I'm motivated now to do it, you know, to go out there. Cause I believe that, dude, men set identity and culture. Like, so you've got to do what is necessary there. If you look at like what you were put on this earth to do, man, you know, and you look at like, dude, you've been given all of these tools. Like, if I sent you into, we have Home Depot and Lowe's here. It was like a hardware store or whatever, you know, but they're big, like massive stores, right? But if I sent you in there, would you be able to go out? There's enough stuff in there that you could build anything you wanted. You could build a massive house or a big commercial building or whatever. You could buy it all there and walk out with enough stuff to be able to build that thing, right? But would you be able to? Whether with the mindset and your ability to do it and the plan to be able to make it happen, or with your freaking grit and your ability to pick up a hammer and freaking, you know, saw and make it happen. Like, dude, those are the questions you got to ask.
And you think, man, there would be many men today that wouldn't be able to do that, Cory.
They wouldn't, and that's not just at Lowe's or Home Depot, dude. That's in our own lives. Like, that's in our own
100%.
marriages. When your marriage is hanging by a thread, dude, I know like firsthand how freaking hard that can be, bro. And my wife had postpartum depression. We dealt with some serious, I mean, dude, like hanging by a thread, dude, like for a long time, and like hatred, anger, rejection, all that stuff that was built into that whole thing. And there was a point in my marriage where I was like, dude, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I just didn't want to. Like I couldn't, and I'm not a giver upper, man. I fight, but at that deal. And I was like, guy was just kind of speaking to me. He's like, dude, if you walk away from this, it's just going to be the same thing because you were the one that chose her in the first place. You chose that relationship. So you can either stop and take a step back and realize how can you fix it and realize it's going to be just as hard to go out and find another woman and then go through the whole thing of dating and then figuring out and then you get to that place 5 years down the road where you're married and it's the same hell that you just escaped from 5 years earlier. Or you can put in the work, 2 years worth of work and change everything, dude.
That's it, brother.
Because it can. But you got to take responsibility. And even when she won't, you got to keep doing it. And you just got to grit your teeth and you got to keep doing it and you got to keep doing it and you got to keep doing it. You got to build, dude. You got to go out and figure out what the hell's going on in here. You got to read books. You got to surround yourself with other men who are speaking life into you. Don't go surround yourself with dudes who want to talk about video games and all this stupid, superficial bull crap. Stop that crap, dude. Grow up, step up and freaking rise, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm over here preaching, man, but I apologize. But I like
man,
that
you speak from the heart, Cory, and that's all I ask, brother.
Dude, it's time for men to step it up, dude. Really. And it comes with building people, building ideas, and building things. And when you talk about building people, building yourself before you can build other people, you know what I'm saying? Get in that space, but it's not going to hurt you to, you don't have to be so far down the road to go and recognize someone who's standing in front of you and just acknowledge, dude, you have you see somebody who has pretty eyes or something like that. You have beautiful eyes and just tell them without any expectation, dude. And if you don't have that, surely you got some homeless people somewhere. Go to McDonald's or somewhere and go buy $50 worth of hamburgers and just walk around and hand them out without any expectation of anything in return and see what that does for you.
No
and then make that
Cory.
Your way of life, dude.
No Maccas, Cory. No Maccas.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, whatever.
Nah, man.
I Evis to give you a recipe or something.
I understand what you're saying, man. I love that side of you, brother. You just hear that softer, that more that compassion that comes out of you, man. It's magic, brother. It's magic. But
thanks, man.
Yeah, man. I guess before I get into what I call my boomerang questions. I wanted to ask the last one because, you see a bit of my stuff online and, I'm really passionate about trying to get guys to move. Obviously, when we're talking about the nutrition, I'm not talking about Maccas. But, how important is it from your side of things, man, that men embody health within their lifestyles?
Dude, it's everything. Okay. So it took me a long time to learn this because I wasn't raised that way, man. I'm so deep South, we grew up drinking soda pop all the time and eating chicken fried steak. And that was just that was a good healthy meal, I thought, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know for a long time. And I started having to drink water. I hated water growing up, and then I got to a place where now that's really all I drink outside of black coffee, here and there. And I'm totally fine with that. And dude, I grill out all the time. I'll make salmon and steaks. And we do I love just natural, good foods, man, with good quality stuff,
We're on the same frequency, man.
Bro, how are you supposed to execute in life if your freaking mechanism is all jacked up?
Yeah, man.
You're only machine, bro. And then what's the thing that drives the machine? So if you think of a robot, if I have an assembly line of robots coming down, right? And now I've got this army of robots standing here before me, and I know that the only thing I've got to do is weaponize them. Let's say I'm going to take a third of them, and I'm going to make them into drywallers or construction robots, right? And I'm going to take another third, and I'm going to turn them into service robots. So they're going to be butlers and stuff. And I'm going to take another third, and I'm going to make those into military robots, right? I'm not going to outfit every one of those the same way, right? So you got to figure out what you are, get really clear on what you're doing, your purpose and your mission and all that kind of stuff, and then go freaking equip. and do it.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? And that means like you don't have an excuse whether you're any one of those to let your body fall away. You just don't, you know. But feed your mind and figure out what you're going to feed your mind and start gaining the skill sets to be able to execute on your vision and your mission, you know. Like make strategic relationships, dude. You know, like with the military robot, you're going to put some heavier armor on that. You're going to deck it out with an awesome CPU that it can think in tactical conditions, right? And give it special vision and guns and things like that are awesome, right? I would want to be that guy. Then you got the other guy with the other robot that's like the construction robot. He's gonna have like drills for hands and like hammers and stuff like that that he needs to do his job, right?
Yeah,
and then the service robot's gonna be more like, dude, you know, like it's gonna be how do you deal with people? So it's gonna have the ability to have people skills, you know, and all that. So, dude, you got to figure out what the heck you want in life. Get clear. And if you're not clear, see Evis, man. You know what I'm saying? Like,
or Cory.
and being out in the middle of the wilderness, man, will help a lot with that, you know?
That's it, brother. Nah, man, 100%, man. You got to equip yourself, and this is the machinery, and it's the only one we get down here while we've got this experience. So, man,
Yep,
100% behind you there. You got to look after it. All right, my brother, we're just coming on to that hour. I'm not going to take too much more of your time. I respect your time, my brother. So down to the boomerang questions. All right, Cory, what is your morning ritual?
My morning ritual is get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I get up and then I'll like do my water. I'll drink a big old glass, 32-ounce glass of water, and then I'll go and either read the Bible or some other book. And then as I do that, then I'll take that and then I'll meditate and pray over that just because my family's not up yet, you know, so I kind of get the day going that way. And then once that's all said and done, I'll get up, have my coffee, play with my kids and stuff. I'll go shower, get ready for the day, and then go crush it, dude. It depends on when it is, but sometimes I'll get up at that time and go work out at 5 a.m. too. So beautiful. But otherwise, I'll do that in the evening.
Man, we're on to it, bro. We're on the same frequency. Before I get on to that next question, Clay just said to us, thanks, man. Brilliant session. He's thanking you for your vulnerability and opening up and sharing today, brother.
Man, my pleasure. Thank you for being a part of it.
Thanks, brother. So what is your night ritual then, Cory?
My night ritual is, man, just really hang out with my kids and then kind of go. I love, you know, I've really gotten into this kick lately of once I put my kids down and kind of hang out with my wife and all that kind of stuff, like I don't watch a TV, but I'll go and find like a documentary. Like I've gotten into watching documentaries, historical documentaries. And if something comes to my mind, like Leonardo da Vinci or Benjamin Franklin or Michelangelo, or like I was just a couple of days ago, I watched a documentary on Noah's Ark from World War II on the side of planes, you know, like where did that start? I don't know. I just had this thought of like, where did that come from? You know? And then, so I went and I found a documentary on it and watched it, you know? So, and then I learned about the P-40. So you learn all this really cool stuff and you realize how history, we tend to think of all those people as being like, they were uneducated and kind of like, dude, they were far superior to us in many ways, but in a lot of ways, like, dude, they are just as much us as we are today. Like humans haven't changed at all. And people say, oh, well, you're in the modern age and all this kind of stuff. That's bullcrap. That is a lie that you tell yourself to feel superior over people who actually did some cool stuff, man. They did it.
Just doing a 360, brother.
That's just doing
a 360. Yeah. All right, brother. Smoothie or juice?
Smoothie all day long, man.
What sort of smoothie, brother?
I do this peanut powder plus from the Smoothie King down here. It's like a smoothie place, but it's got protein powder and like it's all raw stuff, you know, like good stuff, man.
Good man. Virtual fires. All right, feast or fast?
Oh man, depends on the day of the week, I guess. I don't know, but I like both. I mean, I just got done with a fast actually through one of the guys in my group. He put it on. And I like that whenever I'm seeking wisdom and just kind of, haven't done it for the health side of it as much as I have for the mental clarity and the spiritual component.
100%.
But like, dude, a nice feast, and I don't like not an all you can eat buffet, but like, dude, a nice big steak with some grilled Brussels sprouts and, you know, like something, you know, like a salad along with that and just like a really good meal with a glass of wine or some whiskey or something. And I'm good to go, man.
Beautiful. All right. Yeah. Honeymoon or walkabout? Now, walkabout, I'm not too sure if you're familiar.
I know what it is.
So it is that going into the bush, needing some time out for yourself.
That all day long. Yeah, all day, every day, dude.
I
Put
won't
me in
hear.
the middle of the wilderness by myself, and I'm a happy dude. Man.
I won't hear the missus hear that one then, brother.
She would agree with me, by the way. So
All right, brother.
it took me some time to convince her, by the way, because like a lot of these guys are like, yeah, my wife would never go for that or whatever else. That's because you set that precedent. It takes time to
100%.
untrain things, and we teach people and train people how to treat us. So if we think about that, when somebody's treating you like crap, you taught them how to do that. So it's on you, man.
Take the ownership. Take the ownership. That's it,
Yep.
bro. Keto or vego?
I'm not on either one of those boats, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with the keto side of it. You know?
Yes. Thanks, brother.
Going straight veggie, I couldn't do that, dude.
I do keto and intermittent fasting, but it's a plant-based keto, so it's not dirty keto. Don't get it twisted. All right, brother. Now, I saw one of your dreams out there on a bucket list was to go into outer space. On my
Dude,
last,
you did some work, man. Like, where did you find all that? That's crazy. Yeah. I need some tips, man.
Yeah, brother, I can help out. But interesting, man. I love doing the research. But so if you're going into outer space, Cory, and that's one of the buckets that you want to tick off in this lifetime. If there was one planet, my brother, one planet that you could go to that holiday destination, A, which planet would that be? And B, why?
Dude, okay. Like, the sun isn't a planet, but if I couldn't die, I would want to see the sun. Like, I would go to it, you know, and like just because it's like so fascinating to me, like this massive ball of fire, like, and all this kind of stuff, you know, and like how we can get burnt from it here, you know. So imagine what it must be like out there. That's pretty cool. But I think it'd be like Saturn or Neptune, man. Neptune is gorgeous. It's like this perfectly blue, gorgeous planet, you know. And like I just think that like from a planet wise, probably one of the more beautiful ones that we have. But Saturn, the ring and stuff, I think it'd be really interesting to see that too, you know. So
I'm hearing it, brother. I'm hearing it. No, thanks for that, Cory. And
you're
Neptune is that nice blue
That's
planet.
a good question, by the way.
But yeah, man, you've been absolutely amazing, and thank you so much for being on the Woke Warrior today, my brother. Absolute value bombs you've dropped there, and I just want to finish off, man. You know, like a lot of people have talked about the wisdom and grit side of things, but where else can anyone get you on your social media handles, brother?
It's all wisdom and grit, man. So across the board. So you go to YouTube. I got quite a few podcast interviews there myself. We'll have to get you on one, man, for sure. That would be awesome.
Thanks, brother.
And then you got like Instagram, Wisdom and Grit, Facebook, Wisdom and Grit. And I've got a group. It's called For the Men That Build the World, Wisdom and Grit. So you can type it in. It should come up that way. But it's a private group. We got about 900 men inside of that. So good conversations going there. So those are the primary ones.
Beautiful, man. And anything else you want to add before we cut a track, my man?
Yeah. So first of all, you are awesome, man. You are like probably one of the best hosts that I've been on, like as far as show wise goes.
Thanks,
and so,
brother.
And thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And for your audience for taking the time to be here as well. I know an hour and a half these days is a lot of time. And so, especially where you guys are at, because it's middle of the day, ain't it?
Yeah, middle of the day, man. Look,
yeah,
we had a few viewers on there, so it was nice of them to jump in. So thanks for that. Yeah,
that's super cool. Yeah, here it's 8 at night, so I'm open, whatever. So while my kids are in bed and all that stuff. But yeah, I know you're doing a lot of work with guys who are kind of trying to figure out what next, and I really just felt like it's a burden on my heart to kind of talk to you guys real quick because, man, life is ebb and flow, and I'm telling you, like today I was just sitting here thinking about that. It's a little bit of a story, but I'll hurry, okay? The Roman Empire, when it existed, dude, and when we went into the Dark Ages, like the Roman Empire was the most sophisticated city the world had really ever known at that point. And they had like mathematics. And they were building these really awesome structures and art, and all of these things were there. They opened up their walls. They became culturalistic, and they worshiped more of that whole deal. And they're like, oh yeah, we can do this. And they didn't hold true to who they were. And so it weakened their walls. And ultimately the barbarians took over and destroyed them. And basically we went into a 1,000-year span called the Dark Ages, where everything had disappeared because they were destroying art. They had like disavowed all the mathematics and stuff like that. It kind of went into this really heavily oppressive time where we don't have a lot of history or anything like that because it was all cut off, right? And towards the end of that, the bubonic plague hit all of Europe, and in like I think it was a 3 or 4 year span, half of Europe, dude, died. Like, if you can imagine, half of your population, half the United States is gone, dude. Half of Australia is gone in a relatively short amount of time. Like, and you're not even able to process the loss, dude, because everybody was losing family members and friends and all that. And you're dealing with the problem and you don't even have time to grieve, right? I mean, you can think about all of this frustration and the darkness and the deepness and all this stuff that was coming down on these people, you know, from 1,000 years of just darkness and bleakness to now all of a sudden this is happening. And out of that, the Renaissance was born, dude. One of the greatest periods of time where we had architecture. They had figured out mathematics again. They began to build things like the Vatican, dude, and art and things. And all these things took new meaning. And people were building things out of the deepest part of their soul, dude, because of what they had come out of. You know what I'm saying? And it was like nothing. I don't know that we'll ever experience another time like it ever. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. And like, it's super cool because you had guys like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci and all these guys that were creating these things that we look at today and still marvel over, right? 100%. And like, dude, it came out of the darkness. Like, stop despising the darkness. You know what I'm saying? Like, life is the journey. Like, it is like when you think about a caterpillar and it climbs itself up to a tree, knowing deep inside that it was always born to fly, but not necessarily knowing how, because it doesn't have any recognition of how, right? There's no wings on its back. It's not in there going like, man, I'm going to climb up here and then I'm going to be flying around tomorrow, as far as I know, right? But it does what it does, and it seeks significance and meaning while it's crawling on the ground and everything else is soaring above it and eating it, if it can even survive. It gets to the tree, wraps itself in a cocoon. It's in darkness, right? And it's okay. It's a mediocre worm at this point. It crawls up to a tree, and now it's the thing, and its body is breaking apart and transforming. It hurts. It's painful. It's dark. It's all these things, dude. And then at a time, the cocoon begins to break, dude. And now this thing, it's now become what it was always meant to be, dude. And it has wings, and it has all these things that it has to learn how to be, right? But then it gets to go see the most glorious views that anything will ever see, dude, from the sky, dude, and just flying around. And we get to acknowledge its beauty from the ground, dude. Like, have you ever seen a butterfly and not just totally been in awe?
I think we all stop, dude, and we always look in awe, brother. And man, that shit is deep, brother. And it's funny. It's funny, man. A lot of my listeners will appreciate that. And it was funny because, you know, how I want to end it up, brother. And I thank you again and honor your story. Thank you. But you first chose the sun would be the place to go. And when we go into the sun, we've got to think about the sun. It gives us light.
Yeah.
But the sun, if you look at it for too long, it can also blind you. Yeah. So like what Cory says, that's dark and the light. You've got to go into the dark to come out and see the light. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode on the Woke Warrior. My brother's been taking us deep in this land down under. And thank you again, my brother. I look forward to getting you on.
Thank you so much. This was a blast. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure, man. Peace.
All right, brother. See you, man.